There we go. The proposed budget that we're going to share with you tonight is aligned to the strategic plan and supports outcomes for all students. The budget that we're proposing to you tonight has an overall budget of $171.7 million. It's focused on student experiences and outcomes that are directly aligned to the strategic plan. For the second year in a row, the district is presenting a comprehensive budget of all revenues and expenses, not only local funding. The budget was developed after extensive engagement with community, staff, and school leadership. It includes targeted investments in music at the high schools, academic rigor and support at the middle schools, reading support at our elementary schools, and special education district-wide, themes that were clear throughout the conversations that we had and rise to the top in our strategic plan. The proposed budget would raise the school portion of the property taxes by 5.3%, 42 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. For a median homeowner, which in this budget we are considering a median homeowner as $500,000, this would increase their property taxes by $210 per year or $17.50 per month. Tonight, we're going to go through this in a number of stages. You can see the 6 components of the agenda. We're going to talk first around the strategic plan as it grounds our budget. The second, how we got to the budget process. The third, not all of the pieces of the budget, but the prioritized funding that you will see there. We'll then go over the fiscal 26 expenses and revenues, the tax implications, and then the month ahead of the work that we are going to do as both a school board and as a community to finalize the budget. First, I want to remind you and ground our work in our vision and our mission statements and the work that we at Portland Public Schools are doing. And our vision reads, all learners will be fully prepared to participate and succeed in a diverse and ever-changing world. And our mission challenges us. It says the Portland Public Schools is responsible for ensuring a challenging, relevant, and joyful education that empowers every learner to make a difference in the world. We build relationships among families, educators, and the community to promote the healthy development and academic achievement of every learner. Our budget pushes us to do that and to support us in that work. Portland serves a diverse population of just about 6,500 pre-K-12 students across 18 schools and programs. On the left, you can see a breakdown of that. You can see that there is 6,498 students in pre-K-12 as of October 1st, and right around 2,000 students in our adult education program. 56% of our students are identified as economically disadvantaged, and just about 1/3 of our students are multilingual learners. On the right, you can see that as of October 1st, 53% of our students identify as students of color. Our student population has decreased just slightly over the past 8 years, but has been steady since 2021. And so you can see that in 17-18, it was 6695. There is a decrease at the pandemic, and then has remained relatively steady. And while our student population has remained steady, the needs and support that our students need has continued to grow. And so that top line shows the percent of students that identify as economically disadvantaged. And where you see that drop in the middle of that top line is not a reflection of a significant change in student population, but actually in terms of how the metric is measured. You see that our percent of students that are English learners has grown from 24% in 2017-2018 to 30%. And the percent of students who have IEPs is from 15% to 18%. And what we're seeing is actually, even within that population, that the need within that has grown quite significantly. To make sure that we are serving all of those students and achieving outcomes for all students, last year, the community came together and developed a new strategic plan. The strategic plan was grounded in a realistic look at where we're at as a community and making sure that we were achieving success for all students. And at this point, I'm going to pull down my slides and ask Greg to play an overview video of our strategic plan.
When the community group came together to design a strategic plan, we really wanted to make sure that we had a bold vision for the future that made sure that all of our students and all of our staff were provided with the tools and resources to be successful so that we could truly make sure that all students, when they graduate from Portland Public Schools, are prepared and empowered for a future of their choice. When the strategic plan was created, it was designed not to be a typical plan that sits on a shelf. Instead, it's designed to be a roadmap that tells us how to go from where we're currently at to our vision of the future over the next 5 years. There's 5 pillars on which we're focused. The first is around equity and making sure that our plan is serving all students. It's both about supporting our staff to grow as equity leaders and equity educators. It's also about making sure that we have supports in place to maintain a high bar for all students. The second is around achievement and making sure that it's about students having the academic skills and success to be ready for life after high school. The third is we don't just want it to be a great place to learn, but we want it to be a great place to be. And so it's focused on the whole student and making sure that we're supporting all parts of our students. The fourth is we're in education. And in Portland Public Schools, we're only going to be as successful as the people we have driving our buses, working in our cafeteria, teaching our students, and running our schools. And so that fourth pillar is around making sure that we're a great place to work. And so it's really focused on people. The fifth pillar is systems. Portland Public Schools needs to make sure that it has strong systems that allow our educators to focus on teaching and educating students and not on the other pieces. And so the fifth piece has really been focused on our systems, thinking about everything from transportation to facilities to our finance. My hope for the 5-year plan is that when we get there at the end, we can look back and see that there's been significant movement and outcome changes for students. When I joined, I heard from families and from parents about how much they already believe in Portland Public Schools. And my excitement and my real hope is that over the next 5 years, we give them even more reason to talk to their friends in other districts about how great their own son, daughter, student is experiencing school and why it's truly a great place to live, to send your kid, and to work. We also know that we won't get there alone. And so we are fortunate to have members of our business community and our nonprofit partners participate in the development of the strategic plan. We look forward to continuing that engagement because we know that if we come together as one community for this, we'll truly achieve at a high level. The strategic plan is truly a promise to our families, our students, and our staff for a better future in Portland Public Schools. And so we look forward to you joining us in this vision and on this roadmap to a brighter and better future.
And so as the video highlighted, our strategic priorities that we're using to drive toward improved student outcomes and the district's overall success are listed below. We have equity, achievement, and making sure that students are academically prepared for success after school, whole student, so it's not just a great place to get an education, but it's a great place to be. People, because we know that we will only be as strong as the adults that work in our buildings, and systems so that they support the work that is happening in our schools and not get in the way of it. We've also established measures and 5-year targets that we believe are both ambitious and achievable to make sure that when we get to that 5-year mark, that we can look back and see that we've had measurable outcomes on students and measurable improvements. There's two pieces that I just want to highlight. As board members, you've seen these before, but there's some updates that we've had since the last time you've seen this. The first is that our data team was recently able to calculate the percent of multilingual learners that showed growth on the English language development test, the access test. And so this is the percent of students that met what is considered the right annual growth measure. And in baseline year 22-23, it was 38%. And last year, it moved up to 48%. The last measure is at the M class. That is a new assessment that we're using this year to measure our early literacy, knowing the importance of students reading on grade level in second grade. And that measure changes throughout the year as it measures students' performance relative to being a second grader at the beginning of the year versus the middle of the year versus the end of the year. And we not only see that students are maintaining their place, but actually growing a little bit and closing the gap. And so that's great, and I think speaks to some early successes. And it's worth highlighting as this is data that for the most part is actually before we've started to really implement the strategic plan. But because English is in the first year this year, just wanted to highlight that as places. We also have the measures that are more focused around school quality and students feeling a sense of belonging and desire to be at schools, as well as the measures that we have around gap closure and making sure that we are seeing achievement for all students at the same level. And so we know that if that's where we want to get to, and these are the priorities we have, that we need to make sure that our budget is aligned to and supporting that work. And so we engaged in a budget process that included our community and a thorough look at our current state of progress relative to our strategic plan. And so this year, I'm happy to say that we engaged stakeholders earlier in the budget process. We met with staff at each school and with leaders from each department in school. We also had with the board, we should say this here, with board members, we had meetings with students at each of the schools. We met with many of the parent-teacher organizations at the school level and through board listening sessions. At the board level, we have reviewed 7 topics that the board asked us to go into more depth with at the Finance Committee, and we've had both monthly and quarterly monitoring of our progress relative to the strategic plan. As I shared in the executive summary, this year our budget is more comprehensive than what was previously shared. In the budget materials that are shared online, you will see that you have all revenues and expenses, not just those in the local budget. So that means that you will see estimates for titles and other grants. You have a 5-year budget for the district and 1-year budgets for the district, departments, and schools. You have a 5-year and 1-year budget for the fund balance. And for each of our departments, you have a detailed non-personnel budget. This was built from a zero-based budget where every dollar of non-personnel cost needed to be justified and aligned to the strategic plan and the core work of the district. And so now I'm going to talk through where we made prioritized funding decisions. As we went through that process and that community engagement, that engagement resulted in an identification of over $24 million in new requested expenses for FY26. We reviewed each of those investments next to our strategic plan, and that helped us identify the key priorities for this budget. It's also the case that requiring the zero-based budget for our departments helped us again ensure that each of our expenses was aligned to our core work. And so what you'll see in the next slide or set of slides are those key priorities. And those priorities align to 5 strategic initiatives: adult education, elementary literacy, special education, multilingual learners, and early childhood. And I'm going to go through each of those now. Adult education faces a complex year this coming year with the loss of ESSER or COVID funds, a new contract for our adjunct staff there, and the start of a strategic planning process. If you remember last year, we had a lot of conversations as a board and as a community about the loss of those COVID funds from the federal government. Because of the way that grants happen at adult ed, there's a 1-year lag on that. And so they're anticipating a loss of about $750,000 of COVID funds this coming year because of that. It's worth noting that adult education is our largest school in Portland Public Schools. It educates over 2,000 students each year and has a wait list of over 1,000 students. Also of interest, approximately 600 of the students that they serve are also parents of students in our community. And so supporting them is supporting not only their own educational growth, but also our students in our pre-K to 12 programming as well. Recognizing the unique challenges and the importance that this program has in our school or in our community, whether it is about educating adults, supporting language development, or growing the workforce in Portland, it's important that we make sure that it is as effective as possible. And so this year, we're proposing to include money for contracted strategic planning to support their work around their strategic plan. To support the achievement of all readers and to provide capacity at elementary schools, we're proposing to pilot an early literacy education technician at our school-wide Title I funded schools. These schools, just to be clear, are Talbot, Rowe, Presumpscot, Ocean, East End, and Reike. This budget includes one education technician for every 2 kindergarten classes. These staff would support students as they transition to school at the beginning of the year so that they get a strong start and classroom routines are able to be established. And then they will transition then to supporting literacy instruction. And so they will be able to run small group instruction during the literacy block in one classroom and then move to the second classroom for the other part of the day. Our hope is that it serves a second need and a request at the elementary level for just an additional body or two to also help with overall support at the elementary level. In addition, looking at our data, we want to recommend and provide an additional literacy specialist at East End and an additional literacy specialist at Reike, recognizing the needs of the schools. The third area is around special education. This year, we completed a comprehensive review of our special education programming. This budget includes the recommended changes. If you're still here when this presentation's done and we go through public comment and we're at the end of the meeting, we actually have the group that did that comprehensive review presenting and going over their findings. And so you will be able to hear that more in depth. In every conversation that we have at the school level or with the community, the need to focus on special education and the continuum of services comes up. And so we want to make sure that we're using this time to be very strategic and very targeted in how we are funding and how we are developing and how we are supporting our specialized programming, whether that is for small classrooms that are very specialized to students who receive support in the classroom. And so this budget proposes an increase around $400,000 for school-based personnel and just under $1 million around department-based personnel. Some of that is around capacity for training and development of programming. Part of that is around related service providers such as occupational therapy, physical therapy that students receive. Similar to what we did with special education, next year we would like to conduct a full review of our programming to support multilingual learners. As we shared up front, that is about 1/3 of our learners. This budget requests and proposes $125,000 for that contracted review of the programming and services that we offer. In addition, in alignment to the board's resolution around increasing the number of staff that have ESOL credentialing and support, this budget also includes additional funding for that training and tuition reimbursement. The next area, we're proposing to delay our community school initiative for 1 year. That was supposed to launch next year in a design phase. But we are suggesting that we start investing in the capacity around early childhood. Early childhood right now is the responsibility of the state. And so this is for special education identification and services for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. Right now, that's provided by the state. The state passed a law that makes it the district's responsibility to take on that duty by the year 2028. We need to make sure that we have the capacity and the programming ready to serve these students by the time it moves to us. And so we are proposing to bring on a staff member who would start to build out that programming and those resources, as well as some capacity to do that design work. This is proactive planning to make sure that we don't wait until we are responsible for it, but we are doing that proactive planning. This is an area where right now we do receive some reimbursement from the state for the services we provide in pre-K. This is an area, though, that we will need to do further advocacy at the state level to make sure that the funding that they currently use to pay for CDS and to pay for programming shifts to the district so that it does not become a financial burden that we incur and work that we do without the funding that needs to go along with it. That right now is unclear, and it's not currently prescribed what funding will come. We do not anticipate that there will be significant new funding for early capacity building, but that is something that we will have to do. And the last piece, well, not a strategic plan initiative this year. We need to expand our music opportunities at the high school level. When you talk to our students, when you talk to our staff, and we talk to our community, they want students to continue to get music, arts, enrichment opportunities during the day. Because of limited music staff at Portland and at Deering, a significant amount of our programming actually happens at 6, 7 o'clock, where students come for small group or individual lessons. And if you were to go and see our orchestra, I would describe it as small but mighty. It'd be great if they were both large and mighty. And so this is to address that by providing a staff member at both Portland and at Deering. There's 2 pieces I want to add to this. There has been conversation about whether or not it was possible to split and have one teacher go between both. From a programmatic end, that may be possible. From a schedule end, that is really impractical, as one school does their programming on a semester basis and the other does it on an every other day basis. The second piece is that both of our schools would benefit from more class options from which students could select that would also help us lower the number of students that find themselves in study hall. And so by increasing the number of, for lack of a better term, elective teachers that we have at our high schools, we are able to address 2 areas at once. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I've gotten some reassurance from our music lead as well that we would be able to look at some capacity in this that would also be able to support Casco Bay. What that looks like, I'm not sure yet, but it would not be a full-time staff member, but that there'd be some programming that we'd be able to do. And so we just want to acknowledge that the staff would be at Portland and at Deering, but that we'd have some capacity at Casco Bay to be able to offer programming there as well. Those are not all of the changes that happen. There are smaller changes, such as the fact that schools at the elementary level requested an increase in the number of dedicated subs in their building, subs that are there every day. We did that by shifting out per diem sub funds. And there's some other pieces that we can certainly go into depth in the Finance Committee, but those are the highlighted sort of what I think of as large ticket items and things that align with the strategic plan. Let me at this point now share with you what this means from a high level for revenues and expenses. And so first, it's worth just understanding how our budget's built on a number of assumptions that may change during the course of the fiscal year. One of the things we talked about last year is that a budget is a budget. It's not a set of actuals, and that there is some adjustment. And so first, for salaries, we used average per position. And for salary increases for represented staff, we used the contract negotiated. For non-represented staff, we used the average of the represented staff increases. So we had a proxy to use. For benefits, we assumed a 6% increase in health benefits. One of the hardest things about putting together a budget here, besides balancing all of the competing needs, is the fact that our health benefits don't come out to us until closer to the end of March. And so 6% is a placeholder. It is very possible that health benefits will come out higher than that. That is something that we will have to deal with, like every year, as we go through the budget process. But right now, benefits in this budget are assumed at 6%. For staff counts, we did something that I want to talk about in this first bullet, is we assumed a vacancy rate of 0.75%. So as a large organization, we employ between 1,300 and 1,400 employees. There has not been a day in the time I've been here that we are 100% staffed. But in the past, we've always budgeted with the assumption that we are 100% staffed. And so what that's done from a practical end is it means that we have very limited flexibility in funding at the front end, and have more flexibility at the end when all of a sudden we have money from the vacancies. It also means that at times we end up raising the tax rate higher or assuming a higher budget than we would necessarily need to, because we assume 100% 100% fill rate instead of some vacancy. To put this into context, a 0.75% vacancy rate is approximately 10 positions vacant. We don't have historical data that tracks vacancy rates every year, but we feel very comfortable that this is a pretty conservative number, and that when we look at what our current vacancy rates are, what they've been over the last year and a half, that 10 is conservative. And if we look at our spending on personnel and salaries, a 0.75 assumption, it feels, again, pretty conservative and safe. I wouldn't recommend changing that from that and going less conservative, but I do think that it's something that we could do this year to provide a little bit of flexibility on the front end. This will allow us to staff some positions that we otherwise may say that we can't afford to do if we assumed a higher rate, but it may limit some of our flexibility to respond. One example of that is this past year when we incurred the $500,000 cost for Maine PERS with Barry Dunn. We were able to use vacancy savings, if you remember that. We're assuming some of that already in this budget. Other underlying assumptions in this budget for non-personnel, departments were required to provide zero-based budgets. And so there was no assume a 3%. They had to start at zero and build up. And schools budgeted a 3% increase. And this was done to respond to the fact that schools felt like they were too tight on supplies and instructional materials. 3% is not significant. It's below the rate of inflation, but it felt like it was important to increase that. The other piece is on revenues. we assume in this budget a property valuation of $15,320 million. Portland is in the process of a property revaluation process, but that is the number that both us and the city will be using, and it may adjust when the final tax bills come out. And then for revenues for Title I funds and other grants, we did make estimates of what we thought it would be based on historical and information and guidance we've received from the state so far. Our budget overall increases expenses by 6 percentage points and is largely driven by increases in salary and benefits. So you can see that there, that it is $8.9 million in increases in salary and benefits. The supply line, well, it shows that it's going down. One of the things that happened between this budget and last year's budget is last year when we did the budget, we actually started with schools getting all of their funds in supplies, and then they distributed. This year, we're actually a little bit ahead. Again, credit to Heather and her work and the work of our schools. We've already distributed it out to the lines that they want in the budget, and so that's why you see some of that difference. And so the overall increase in the budget is from a budget in FY25 of $161 million to $171 million in 26. Salaries and benefits remain the majority of our operating expenses. You can see that it's 78.5%. Just under 5% is supplies. Just under 8% is debt service, and contracted services is just under 9%. Our pre-K to 12 programming sees a significant drop in federal funds this year. That comes from two spaces. That comes from, we had a little bit of COVID funds in this year's budget because of the fact that it ended in September and it paid for summer school. And so you see that. And then also we're anticipating a reduction in our title funds. Last year we went into the budget process assuming a small uptick in title funds, and then it turned out to be lower. And this year we're budgeting for it to be lower. And so overall local funds go up $8 million. State revenue goes up $500,000, some of that being driven by reimbursement for CDS, and also that $443,000 that you see there, that is the Preventing Homelessness grant. And so that is a very targeted grant from the state that shows up there. And so that is not particular to classroom programming. And then you see the drop in federal funds. We also propose to use $3.9 million in fund balance reserves. We have a healthy fund balance reserve. We budgeted to use $3.6 million in 24 and actually ended up only using $600,000. We're budgeted to use $3.5 million this year and are on track to use less than that. And so we're budgeting this year for more, to use 3.9. You won't see this on this slide, but you will see in the budget book that next year our pension obligation ends. And so that will take $2.7 million off of our debt payment to help us offset some of these fund balance expenses. And so our total pre-K to 12 programming in the proposed budget is $160,800,000. Food service and adult education are included on this slide. Food service revenue is relatively flat. And as I shared before, adult education will see a drop in revenue from the reduction in COVID funds. You can't do an apples to apples comparison here because in FY25, the grants weren't included, but a credit to Abby, the executive director of adult ed, for really working to get grants in this year. And so you can see that all here now, but it is an actual drop in their funding, and food service is flat. One of the things, if you're new to the budget process, is adult education and food service almost function as sort of their own funding streams. And so we always talk about pre-K to 12, adult education, and food service in 3 lines. Overall, you can see revenue streams there then brought up. So the $160 million for pre-K 12, $5 million for adult ed, and the $5.6 million for food service, for a total of the $171.7 million. We receive funding to pay for this from local, state, and federal sources. And on the left, you see a breakdown of what it looks like from a funding piece. So you see property taxes makes up the largest proportion. You see state there at just over $28 million, and then federal at 8.8. And then on the right, you see the distribution between pre-K, adult ed, and food service. And then this chart shows how, because of the loss of COVID funds and the continued decreased proportion of revenue that we receive from other sources, that we see that local property taxes continue to make up a significant proportion and an increased proportion since FY24 of our funding. And we anticipate that right now, without changes in the state funding formula, that we will continue to see this chart grow, where more of the burden sits on property taxes for our funding. Also worth just noting here, these are our 4 buckets of funding. We get funding from the state, the federal, the other local is a small amount of grant funding, and then it's fund balance. And then the only place where we can really influence it is around property tax and the property tax rate that we set. The school district, unlike the city, does not have the ability to raise or change other fee structures. And so we do not have the ability to increase parking rates or trash bags or other advocacy that may get us additional revenue. And so unfortunately, we are stuck to changing just this one revenue stream when we talk about it at the budget. And then as a body, as a school board, technically what you approve is the local budget. And so what you see here is the local budget. This takes out those title funds. So Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, IDA, so targeted specific funds, it takes out and shows you that the overall local budget is $162.7 million. And so we show you the comprehensive, but at the end of the day, the technical is, this is the one you would be voting on and approving. So let's talk about this from a tax implication end. The proposed school tax increases this year to cover the budgeted expenses is 42 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, or 5.3% on a property valuation of $15.32 billion. The chart shows you the trend from fiscal year 2020 to 2026, with a note that in 2022, there was a property revaluation. That's what's happening there in the middle. And then our property taxes get split between pre-K-12 and adult ed, and so you can see the split there. And then you can see the impact that I shared earlier about the impact to the median homeowner of $210 per year of this 5.3% increase, or $17.50 per month. I'm not an expert in it, but I do want to remind the board and our listeners that the city and the state both have programs to support property owners with local property taxes. And so there are programs such as P-STEP to support seniors in our community, as well as the Maine homestead exemption programming. And I would encourage members of our community to go to both the city website and the state website to learn about what options are available and to continue to advocate for additional changes and increased funding to these programming, as it allows us to continue to provide funding and resources for our district, while making sure that the tax burden is spread as equitable as possible. So tonight is the start of the, I'd say it's the start of the process. It's the what is it? It's the third quarter, maybe the third quarter, started the fourth quarter of our budget process. And so what you see here on the screen is the key dates that we have going over the next month and then 3 months. And so today's the budget presentation. We have finance committee meetings scheduled on the 10th and the 17th, the board meeting on the 18th. At all of those, there's the availability for public comment. There are joint finance meetings with the city on the 20th and the 27th. On April 1st and 8th is when the school board will have its public hearings on the budget. And again, there are the availability of public comment at those times. And it is currently scheduled that the board will have its second read and vote on the budget on April 8th. It's tentative, but we believe that City Council will take up on its second read on May 19th, this school budget. And then the public referendum is scheduled for June 10th. And so just a reminder, because it's been a little bit of a lengthy presentation, that I just want to run back through the highlights, but a reminder, our budget needs to be aligned to our strategic plan, and it needs to support the outcomes for all students. The budget that you had tonight has an overall budget of $171.7 million. It's directly aligned to the strategic plan, and the packet that you have includes expenses and revenues in all streams. It was developed after extensive engagement with all stakeholders in our community. It has targeted investments that align with the priorities of the strategic plan, the needs of the district, and it would raise the school portion of the property taxes by 5.31%, or 42 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, for $210 per year, which I think is a pretty good deal when you think about what our students experience in school. And so with that, Chair Lentz, I will turn it over to you.
Beautiful. And I'm going to open it up to public comment around the budget in just a second. But Superintendent, I realize we didn't talk about how the final tax number happens. I think a lot of people think that we have our tax increase, the city has their tax increase, and they're added together, and that's the total tax increase for the community. But that's not actually the truth. Could you dispel the rumors right now? Thank you.
Yeah, give me just 10 seconds. I'll pull up a slide.
Yeah, you had a good slide last year.
But I got to warn y'all, I was an economics major in college, and I was a former math teacher. So this is like not the question you want to ask somebody if you want to get out of here in a reasonable amount of time.
All right, keep it quick.
Okay. All right, that's better guidance.
You want to, yes,
Here we go.
to that.
Yep. So let me just go to slideshow mode so you can see it. So the property tax that you pay as a homeowner in Portland is made of three components: the city, the county, and the school district. The county is such a small part that you can almost think of it as part of the city. And so between the city-county side of it and the school district, we're just about 50-50 in terms of our portion of the property tax. And so the way it works out is it is actually a weighted average of it. And so to make it really simple, in our proposal, we propose raising the property tax by 5.3%. If the city also proposed raising the property tax by 5.3%, as a homeowner, you would see an overall increase in your property taxes of 5.3%. It is an average of them. It is not an addition to. And so that is what happens when the property tax goes in. And so just add that as caution so that as people are thinking about this, they don't add it, because it is just, when we're talking about the 5.3, it is just on the school portion, which is half of your property taxes, not the full.
Thank you, Superintendent. And on that, I'd love to open up public comment for budget-related comments. The same rules that I read out earlier still apply, but if you would like to give comment in person, please come up to the podium. And if you would like to give a comment on Zoom, please raise your hand. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Audrey Cabral. I am the band director at Lincoln, King, Longfellow, Reiki, Rowe, and Talbot. I'm also the coordinator of the music department. I have nothing else to say because Dr. Scallon, you said it all, so no. First of all, I'd like to thank you for bringing up the All-City Concert. We've invited members of the board to the All-City Concert, which involves grades 6 through 12 music students, chorus, band, and orchestra at Deering High School at 4, so maybe it's before the Finance Committee meeting, I'm hoping. I had actually already written down that I was here to advocate for 2 music teachers to be added to the budget. And after 35 years of being in Portland, this is the first time that I am here to say thank you for me coming up to advocate rather than me going, please, please, please don't cut a music teacher. As stated, Portland High School and Deering High School, we each have 1 music teacher at each high school. There's presently 3 art teachers. Casco Bay has a .5 art teacher. There's no music teacher here at Casco Bay. The high school teachers teach band, chorus, digital music, guitar, ukulele, piano, jazz band, handbells, and sure I'm leaving other things off. And they do it, as Dr. Scallon mentioned, before school, after school. And I go to a lot of music festivals, you talk to area high school teachers, and there's a band director that goes to one festival, and an orchestra teacher that goes to the festival, and then there's a chorus teacher, but they're all from the same high schools. So this is great. This would be awesome. We also have, we're one of the best symphonies for small cities. We're actually considered a small city nationwide. The PSO comes into all of our elementary schools, plays for our elementary students, and then when they finally reach an age to be able to play instruments, we're spread so thin that we can't help them out enough of what they deserve after seeing and visiting and doing petting zoos with the symphony. Portland has one of the best music out there. You go anywhere and there's music everywhere at arts. So thank you for considering it. Right now, we have 2 band directors and 2 string teachers serving our 12 schools. So we travel a lot. I'm in my car a lot. And I just wanted to say thank you for thinking about this. I love what I do, in case you couldn't tell. Passionate about music. I'm passionate about the arts. We are here. We are SEL. We are educating the whole student. You see and hear the arts every day, all day around you, whether you recognize it or not. So I'd like to thank the school board and Dr. Scallon for recognizing, after 35 years, the importance of the arts in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. I'm going to go online to Abby Hutchins, and if there's somebody else in the room that would like to give public comment, you can come on up to the podium. Abby, go ahead.
Unmute. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. Thank you so much to the board and Superintendent Scallon for discussing this tonight. My name's Abby Hutchins. I live in Portland. And as you might know, I am the music teacher at Deering High School. And Audrey really took a lot of the words out of my mouth already. So thank you, Audrey. I am a graduate of the Portland Public School System. I'm a teacher and also a parent of 2 students. One graduated, one currently a student. So the music programming for me has been near and dear to my heart for literally 40 years. I don't mean to repeat myself. Audrey did mention, but at Deering High School, I currently teach digital music, guitar, ukulele, piano, adaptive music, band, jazz band, chorus, handbells, and recently took on co-director of the evening high school orchestra with Audrey. This position, when I was a student in school, was always held by 2 teachers. Even when I started working here in 2009, those positions were held by 2 teachers. So it really, the way it is now with one, in the long term, is just not sustainable. It's a lot. Other area high schools with robust and thriving programs have specialists for instrumental and specialists for vocal. It does allow us to connect with more students and offer a wider variety of electives. And like she said, 3 art teachers at each high school. For equity purposes, we really need those 2 teachers at each high school. I'm so glad that we're discussing it. I'm so glad that you're considering it. It can only bring wonderful things to our district. And again, I extend an invitation to all of you to the concert on March 19th at Deering High School, starting at 4. So thank you so much. Thank you for letting me speak, and for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby.
Hello, my name is Audrey Bartholomew. I live at 32 Glenhaven Road West. I have 2 children in the district. I have a daughter who's in 4th grade at Rowe and a 9th grader at Deering. So first, I just want to thank you all for how much time and energy you put into, building up our schools. And I will say that I spent a lot of time. I wrote comments. I rewrote comments. I even asked ChatGPT, what do I want to say? So I'm just going to go for it. So I am a special education professor. I work trying to build up special ed teachers. Actually, I have a student teacher in the district now. But I want to just say my daughters are doing very well. My older daughter is thriving at Deering, and my younger daughter has a first-year teacher I was very nervous about, and she's amazing. She's fabulous. So I've been out of the classroom for 20 years, and this year I decided I had to get back in there. How have things changed, especially since COVID? So I decided to become a substitute in Portland schools, and I have subbed probably around 20 days, primarily in specialized programs in special education. So first, I want to thank you for the incredible investment that you are about to make in special education. And the investment that you made this year by conducting the program review. I want to recognize that this is a gift and an opportunity to truly provide Portland students with disabilities what they need. Just some observations from being a substitute. I've seen a lot of good things. I saw some amazing things at Ocean, things at Deering. I do just want to say that my overall perception is that our teachers are drowning. They are absolutely drowning in the classrooms that I worked in. And as a result, I don't think students are getting what they need. I see an over-reliance on ed techs. I think they're used as a first line of, if we have a challenge, we're going to put a body with the student, which I don't think is always the best thing to do. But I think that's because our teachers are doing the best they can. Anybody in special ed knows that the field is a critical shortage right now. And Portland, like any other district, is being forced to hire people who are not maybe fully certified or know everything that they need to know. And I think that's where Portland needs to step in. I'm really, really hoping that this money can be used towards a significant investment in coaching and professional development, working with teachers on positive behavior supports, just really supporting our teachers so we can keep them. The investment that we make in our teachers is critically important. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and I really, really look forward to seeing what Portland does. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to Dr. Sarah Norsworthy on Zoom now. Go ahead, Sarah.
Great. Am I on? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me on. Good evening. My name is Sarah Norsworthy. I'm a Portland educator, and I'm speaking in support of the work of Portland Adult Ed. I also teach the master's capstone at Maine, guiding teachers in using action research in their practice. As an action researcher by nature and now by training, I notice, name, and act. Tonight, I'm calling in as an action to share what I have noticed and been finding the words to name over the past few months at Portland Adult Ed. I started teaching in Portland 10 years ago and have taught it more at Reiki, and I taught remotely for 2 years. This year is my first as a teacher at PAE, which I believe is Maine's largest school. I've long heard about the critical work happening at Portland Adult Ed. Witnessing the energy and excellence in real time has really been incredible. I am now an instructor in the workforce department at PAE, and I'm speaking tonight in support of the work students, staff, administrators, and teachers are doing at PAE to prepare our adult students for careers and for new careers within our greater Portland community. Our students come to our workforce classes directly after completing high school and throughout the many stages of their lives. There are over 200 students enrolled in workforce classes at PAE. Students are enrolled in many programs, including training for careers in clean energy, the medical, banking, and transportation fields. Students are prepared for career-specific certificates and licenses. Digital skills and digital literacy are taught, learned, and practiced. Students, teachers, and staff are additionally supported by volunteers who donate their time, sharing their experiences, their time and talents with students, as well as preparing students for mock interviews and their job searches. Business and nonprofit community partners also work with our workforce department to ensure that we are able to respond to emerging and the ever-changing needs within our local labor market. Our partners, through regular and ongoing communication and collaborative program design, are able to guide us in providing pathways for our students to enter the workplace, further their careers, and to change careers to meet the current needs of our local economy. I encourage you to, yep, I'm almost finished. I encourage you to come visit PAE, especially on a day when students are preparing for interviews. The buzz, the light, the energy radiates through our building. As Dr. Skellen shared earlier, roughly a third of our students are parents and caregivers of PPS students. Supporting caregivers and furthering their careers while supporting their pre-K-12 students increases the chances that Portland families can thrive. Is there a better investment? I encourage you to please support the work of Portland's largest school, Portland Adult Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Come on up.
Howdy, everybody. My name is Nicola Wales. I'm a tax-paying resident of Portland. I live off Chesley Ave. I'm a neighbor of Abby Hutchins. I'm also a parent of a PPS student. If the name sounds familiar, I've been the guy that's been emailing you all for months. I didn't really receive any responses, so I didn't know if you guys were actually reading them. So I'll start up front and say, in no way, shape, or form do I trust any of you guys with a dime of my money. And I'll tell you why. Okay, this is all beautiful, everything you guys are talking about equity and equality and everything. Here's what's happening at Lincoln, right? We have one custodian for 12 hours a day. Our building is in disrepair. The third-party service we're hiring to do the work that isn't doing it, I write to central office about it. Somebody's in making my custodian cry within an hour. That was fun. When our physical wellness teacher left, did we get a long-term sub? No. Do we have one still? 4.5 months later? No. I have been writing you all because our students have not been learning health or wellness for 4.5 months. You guys didn't respond to me once. But you guys want to ask for more money? We don't have enough bus drivers and aides to get students to school on time. We don't have enough ed techs to do their one-on-ones legally. We don't have enough chairs for the kids. And again, what happens when I am begging you for help? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I got 2 emails back that said, oh, wow, we'll look into this. So I love seeing all the equality and opportunity going on up here, knowing that when I am begging you for help, you guys don't respond. I did get a meeting with the superintendent. He asked me to meet. Then he, walk in, I've got a hard stop in 30 minutes. I bring up lesson plans, I get a hand to the face. I get snapped at, I get talked down to. I mean, that's my fault. I made the mistake of caring. That one's on me. The only person that gave me any time to actually talk was Dr. Ahmed. And you guys seriously want to ask for more money? Are you kidding me? It's important enough to be on the state mandated curriculum, but not important enough for you guys to ensure that our students are being taught? If it was math or science, would you guys have cared more? This is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And everybody keeps saying, don't make waves at somebody else's job. What am I doing? My kid goes to Portland schools. My nephew is in that school. We need health and wellness instruction. Not important enough for you guys. But again, come now and ask us for more money for additional programs. I am so angry right now, it's not even funny. You know what? And I told you guys in my last email, if you bother to read it again, that since you guys wouldn't respond and we weren't getting anywhere, that I would have to come to these meetings. I don't want to be here. But no, instead of, looking into an issue of students not being taught, you guys ghosted me. I got nothing from you guys. Again, and you want to increase the budget. We are not doing anything right. Anything. And when we go to the district for help, we get nothing. I get snapped at and talked down to. Again, for making the mistake of actually caring if our students are taught. And now you guys want to ask me and the Portland residents for more money while glossing over the fact that we're not doing the basics right. It's appalling. It's hypocrisy to see you guys talk about how much you care.
Time, Nico.
Thank you to all the staff at Lincoln and everything they do.
I'm going to move on to Rachel on Zoom. Rachel Lawson, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Rachel Lawson and I live at 64 Tobias Street. I am the music teacher at Portland High School. I'm probably going to reiterate a lot of the points that Audrey and Abby already spoke about as far as hiring another music teacher goes. But tonight I would like to just put into perspective a little bit about what my position entails and some of the challenges it can bring being the only music teacher at Portland High School. I'd also like to really talk about how important it is that we hire specifically an instrumental teacher and how that will benefit students. So kind of like Abby, I currently teach 8 different curriculums throughout the year. These classes and one club include chorus, band, jazz band, ukulele, intro to guitar, intro to piano, intermediate guitar and piano, and musical theater. Again, that is 8 different curriculums being taught by just one teacher. For a moment, imagine a single art teacher being responsible for teaching painting, sculpture, photography, graphic design, ceramics, and any advanced art classes on top of those. While these disciplines share some similarities, each require distinct technical skills and expertise to teach effectively. The staffing structure of the art department, with multiple teachers leading those classes, ensures that students receive specialized instruction across those various disciplines. That's how it should be, and that's exactly what we are hoping to do in the music department as well, as far as how we structure the music department. At the high school level, I believe, and I know we all believe, it is critical to have one music educator who specializes in choral music and one who specializes in instrumental music. This will benefit our students immensely with the well-rounded instruction that they deserve. Having 2 teachers at each school will also help build strong music programs. And we know that a strong music program leads to higher student engagement, lower absenteeism, which I know is a critical thing that all schools in our district are currently working on, and increased graduation rates. Successful music programs also help build school pride. If we hire a band teacher, they could bring back a marching band program and a pep band program, which I know existed at some point in Portland's history, both of which would be able to play at our sporting events through the school year, any school functions or assemblies throughout the school year, all of which, again, build school pride and community. And last, hiring another music teacher will allow us to offer more electives for students to choose from. Because I am the only music teacher, there are currently 3 different sections of Intro to Piano and Guitar because there are simply not enough electives, other electives for those students to choose from. But if we had another music teacher, we could be offering that course along with other music classes like perhaps a percussion ensemble, music theory, AP music theory, and
You're at time, Rachel?
ensembles. I'm almost done.
Okay, go ahead and finish.
So many opportunities that would come out of this to enrich students' music education experience and to better prepare those students wanting to continue music at the collegiate level. By prioritizing music education, I promise our community will not only see but also hear the difference in student achievement. So thank you so much. Thank you to the board for considering this. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to give public comment?
Hi, everyone. My name is Linda. I live in Westbrook. I'm here tonight to speak about my grandson, which goes to Rose School. When he first started, he's in pre-K. When we first started, we had 3 meetings. And I go with my daughter and son-in-law because I advocate for them too. And at the 3rd meeting, I spoke up and said, all we do is talk. This is a 3rd meeting and we're still talking. Something has to be done. And if you people can't do it, then you have to go to higher ups to get things done. And by golly, they got him a one-on-one. Because he's a special needs student. And I guess that one-on-one in him didn't click because he started acting out, which is something he doesn't usually do. Now they have him a new one-on-one and it's going good. So I think what's happening is she's teaching him the way he learns, not the way they teach. And I know that the teachers there are overwhelmed. And when I spoke up and said what I did about we're always talking and not doing anything, one of the teachers walked out of the room. I felt really bad, like I had insulted her. And she's a wonderful teacher. She came back in the room and I apologized after. But then speaking to her today, she told me she didn't walk out because of what I said. She walked out in frustration with the school system. So thanks for your time. I just thought I'd share that with you. But we have to do less talk and take more action. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised I even got up here and spoke because it's not like me to do that. But I have a purpose, and it's my grandson. And he's just a good little guy, and he deserves what every child deserves, an education. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stephen Sharp of Brackett Street in Portland. This budget that's being presented to you has I guess the number 6% increase in the cost of the budget, which doesn't sound like much, but with the fact that the enrollment, well, first of all, I asked every year that in the original budget package that there be an enrollment chart that gets added later that shows the projected enrollment for next year. So you are looking at a budget document that doesn't even tell you what the projected enrollment is. It tells you what your enrollment last October was and your history of enrollment, but not what your enrollment for next year is going to be. And so you're being asked to create a budget or approve a budget without the enrollment numbers. Every year it gets produced after the fact. So that's a very important document you need. But your current enrollment is down 119 from the year before. And yet you've had a 6 or 7% increase in this year's budget, and you want another 6 or 7% increase in next year's budget. That math really doesn't make much sense at this point. You need to be looking at cutting places to cut in this budget. There's a number of places I could easily show you where you don't need to be spending. I just quickly looking at the document that was presented tonight, 6,498 kids, students, and a teaching staff and ed tech staff. Can't remember what the total number was, but it comes out to 7.5 7.5 students per staff member. That is a significantly low number. Should be much higher. Should be more like 12 to 15. And we're running a school system that provides staffing at 7.5 percent. I don't know what the term you'd use there exactly is, but that is just far too low a number. And I would recommend that this board take a fine-tooth comb and go through that budget and look for all the places you can reduce the spending of this school district. Remember, the voters have the final vote on this on June 10th.
Thank you, Stephen. Come on up.
Hello, thank you all for your time and for the presentation. My name is Brittany Peets, and I have 2 students at Rowe in pre-K and first grade, and they've had a wonderful experience so far. I don't have a specific comment because I haven't been able to dig deeply into the budget. I just wanted to state that I really appreciate all the work that's gone into this and all the work that you do every day in your jobs and as board members. I think that investing in the schools is the best way that we can really support our community. I appreciate the continued focus on equity, and I just really want to thank you for your thoughtfulness and caring for our students in the best way that you can. Thanks.
Thank you, Brittany. We're going to go back online. Prosperity Maine programs.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
My name is Bright, and I'm here to comment in support of the budget. And I would just like to speak a little bit about the collaboration that we do with Portland Adult Education. So Portland Adult Education and Prosperity Maine have been key community partners for over 10 years now. And our collaboration really goes to serving residents of the greater Portland area who are interested in pursuing or furthering their education or careers. Recently, in the last few years, I want to say maybe 2 years now, I've been teaching the basic money management portion of the teletraining program and the English for job preparation program. And I cannot tell you of the immense impact that it has on the students that we teach. And I can firmly say that because I get this feedback all the time from the students at the end of my portion of the program, talking about how much they appreciate the knowledge that they're gaining and how it means so much to them to be able to have these tools that they can then use as they enter the workforce. So it's been really an incredible experience to be able to help the students with that. Portland Adult Education contributes to the Portland economy and community through focused and high-quality workforce development classes. And just the 2 that I've mentioned, but they offer over 100 classes, 170 classes a year. And that just goes to show how much work they're doing in the community and how they're motivated and determined to help members of the community be productive and have skills as they are entering the workforce. So that is what I wanted to share tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to give public comment on the budget?
Hello, good evening. My name is Damon Yakovlev, resident of Portland, parent of 2 children at Rowe Elementary School, one in pre-K and one in 3rd grade. And I'll start by saying deeply appreciative of everything that the staff, board members, and community volunteers do to make Portland Public Schools a great institution. I appreciate the presentation this evening. It sounds like the budget is off on a good footing. I look forward to diving into some of the details, subsequent meetings, and hearing more input from you as you discuss it, deliberate, and members of the public as they participate in upcoming public hearings on it. I did want to say I really appreciate the effort to make the public more aware of some of the programs out there that blunt the increases in property tax on low, moderate income people and seniors. And I do want to echo the call to expand those programs further. Hopefully the city council will be listening and will expand the P-STEP program in particular. And the property tax credit program at the state legislature as well. That one in particular, I think is important for Portland being a city of renters because it's not just a program for homeowners. It also allows renters to get a credit if, property taxes get passed on to them through their rents. So again, thank you for the presentation this evening. Look forward to diving in more and appreciate all you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon. Any other public comment in the room or online around the budget?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maris Ayala. I am a parent of 2 students at Rowe. So thank you so much for Rowe teachers and principals. I'm also the Lincoln Middle School principal. I don't really have anything planned to say or written. I just know what I would like to say is that I really appreciate this presentation. And I just want to encourage anyone that speaks to just remember that we are modeling for students across our district and to people as well, right? And I want to encourage you to come together to really find solutions and compromises for our budget. This is not the last budget. We will continue talking about it. And I think it's really important to continue having that open communication and to, at the end of the day, remember that we are centering children. So to always remember that we're centering the kids of Portland Public Schools. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the budget? Okay, seeing no people at the podium or hands on Zoom, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment for the budget. And I would be looking to board members at this point we'll start with any clarifying questions, and then we will talk about kind of directives for the Finance Committee before we move this budget to the Finance Committee. So at this point, I would welcome any clarifying questions from folks. Yes, Board Member Yusra Ali.
I just wanted to clarify, positions that are planning positions, are those for 5 or 1 year?
Can you be a little more clear?
Yes, so for special education, there is department-based personnel.
Yep.
Would that be for just the duration of figuring out the programming, or is that longer?
So the positions that are, that's a great question. The positions that are proposed and the cost that you see are for 1 year. It's an assumed that they would continue on. There's none that we highlighted as specific to 1 year. We could certainly look at that. There's probably some areas where we could talk about some short-term investment, but for special education in particular, where it is there, we've done the analysis of the programming. Now it's about the capacity to oversee and run it. There's an ongoing need.
Thank you, Board Member Lena.
Yep. I have a follow-up to that question. Can you tell us how many positions and where those you're envisioning they would go for the $400,000 increase in school-based personnel? How many staff members would that be, and where do you see them fitting in?
So I don't remember off the top of my head exactly which schools they're at. It's 3.5 teachers. And in the budget book, there's a table that has the exact staff count by school. And so there's 3.5 teachers there. There was some change that happened this year, just within the school year, of bringing on additional education technicians that were included in this as well. But we didn't consider it an addition because we were looking at it from year to year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Other clarifying questions from the board? I just had one question, Superintendent. If you could go through those investment slides and note anywhere where things are being pulled from reserves versus the budget or local budget, that would be helpful. I'm sure it's in the budget book, but it would be helpful to have that context tonight. Or if you want to point me to a page.
This is like a test of how well you remember your homework after the fact. So if you look, well, now I don't know what page it is. If you look at page 17 in the budget book, you will see a fund balance piece there. The fund balance at the end of fiscal year 14 was around just under $15 million. It was $14,900,000. We estimated to use $3.5 million of it this year. And so you can see that for starting balance, we had a balance of $11.4 million or just under. That's at the top of that FY26 fund balance. What you can see here is, and this is a little bit of, you can think of it as like not necessarily this specific money is from fund balance, but how do we show that these aren't reoccurring costs, but are instead one-time costs? And so the pension bond obligation is a bond obligation that we've had for a number of years. This is the last year that we have a payment on it. It's $2.67 million, and so it ends after this year. The other big one is under Priority 5 Systems, which is the Maine PERS reconciling, which we've budgeted another $500,000 for that. So that's $3.1 million of the $3.9 million that we're proposing. The others you can see in there are the adult education consultant, support for high school math, multilingual, early childhood, leadership training, and then food service has its own fund reserve that you're seeing there as well. So that's how I showed it.
Great, that's super helpful. And then my other question was just around the food service reserves.
Yep.
They had money that they had to spend down, right? And so will this take care of their necessary spending?
So they had a 2-year spend down of $1 million as of last year. They're not on track to fully spend it down. And so we have it included in this year's budget to make sure that it's spent down. The case is that some of the anticipated costs are a little bit lower. There was a grant that came in that may pay for what was going to be a very large cost. And so in some cases, it's not a bad sign, but in fact, that some other funds to pay for a reserve generator, for example, came in.
Great, great. I love it when we buy generators, really. Board Member Lena, go ahead.
Thank you. I had a question about the early childhood capacity. When we move toward that responsibility, will we be accepting all students eligible for pre-K, or will we still be in a pre-K lottery model?
So it's really two different things. So we would still be in a pre-K lottery model unless we were to change our pre-K programming. This is particular to early childhood special education services. So this is even before pre-K. This is the identification of students requiring early intervention services and then the providing of those services.
So would this be for any 3- and 4-year-old that lives in Portland?
Yes, that's actually the requirement.
Okay.
So in any other state except for Maine, currently, that requirement by law is on the district. And if the district were to fail to identify a student as requiring early intervention services, they could be legally liable. and they're required to provide those services. In Maine, those services are currently provided by CDS, and it's changing over to the district in 2028. And so this is making sure that we're prepared for that transition. It's as significant as your face makes it to be. Yeah.
Yes. Board Member Yusra Ali.
I just wanted a little bit more clarification on what does prepare in advance exactly mean?
So right now, we do not have a structure or supports in place for a student who is, as the law says, 2.3 years or older to identify that they need early intervention services. So this could be a young child who needs physical therapy to support their development, to make sure that they stay on the appropriate development curve. We do not have a structure in place. We need to have a structure in place so that those students would get referred to us, that we would identify them, that we would have them receive testing and identify what supports they need, and then provide those services. And so that is what we need to do for any child starting at the age of 2.3 and then providing it for when they're 3 and 4. And so it is a significant obligation. It is a significant fiscal obligation. It is a significant moral obligation. It is also one that the state has not been doing a great job of. And so this is one where we are, everybody's in need of sort of taking it on, and the state is doing that. And so this is what's happening.
Will the state be refunding Portland Public Schools then for that work?
This is actually what I was sharing a little bit of, which is that that question is unclear. Right now, if you were to look at the budget book, you will see a funding line called CDS, Programming Reimbursement, something like that. That is funding that we currently receive from the state to provide special education services for students in our pre-K program. Those are students that would fall within this bucket, but it's only for that. The law is not clear about whether or not we will receive the monies that the state would have otherwise spent to do this service. And so that is a piece where we will need to do significant advocacy. Otherwise, we should anticipate a significant cost burden coming to the district on this. And so, again, this is one of those things that the best plan is one that's done in advance and before you actually own it. And this is not a small thing. So sometimes people look at this and say, well, 2028 is 3 years from now. 2028 is going to feel like it's tomorrow very soon when it comes to this.
I'm going to go to Vice Chair Bondo, and then I'll come back this way. Go ahead, Mickey.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Superintendent. I have 3 questions. I just want to go back to the fund reserve. Can you just get me back to the last year fund reserve? I mean, the remaining ones. Are we going to use the remaining one and adding up some of the funds for the 2020 for the 26, and how much is going to be?
So we have unaudited financials that gives us an indication. You'll receive the fully audited at some point this month, likely during one of the joint city finance committee meetings. And we anticipate that financial audit will share that we have $14.9 million in fund balance at the end of fiscal year 24.
Okay.
So that's not this year, that's last year. Mm-hmm. We have budgeted $3.5 million approximately, a little bit more for this year. Mm-hmm. We're not on track right now to spend all of it, and so we don't anticipate that we will fully spend it down. There's 2 pieces I would say about fund reserve. Is one, that the state has a law that limits the exact amount of fund reserve that we're allowed to carry. Mm-hmm. The law was sort of either slightly modified or ignored to allow us to carry higher during COVID. and when there was large amounts of COVID funds available. We are currently above the threshold, and so we do need to spend down. It is also, I think, prudent for us to maintain a somewhat healthy reserve, just with unknown potential costs, or let me rephrase that, potential reductions in revenue at the federal level that may happen, whether that's at the food program level as we get significant reimbursement at the federal level to changes in title. And so there's a balance there of needing to spend and needing to keep a healthy reserve.
Okay, that makes sense. So most of the fund balance for this year is going to be just for one-time cost, all right? Expenditure?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So my second question is on the adult education. I saw the zero amount, if I remember correctly, under the grant for the 25 for this current year. That's correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. I couldn't quite follow it.
You broke up a little bit, Mickey.
Oh, okay. On the adult education, under the grant, I saw zero amount on the 2025 and a 5 million projected to 25 for 26. I just want to make sure then that's exactly what I saw.
Yes. So when the budget book was put together for fiscal year 25, we did not have the grants for adult education. This year, we didn't know what they were. They had not been previously included in Munis, our financial system. This year, through the work of Abby, the director of adult education, her team, we've included them this year. And so we've included estimates of what we anticipate receiving. And so that's why you see it go from zero to a higher number.
So are we going to have some retroactive expenditures there? So if it's not, so how did we cover those areas then we're supposed to be covering that grant?
So this is more a question of, we got into a spot where we were trying to figure out how to show and keep it consistent. And so what we can share at the finance committee is an updated number there that shows what dollar amount of grants they have received this year versus what was budgeted. And so we can show you that it's not a need to go back retro. They have received grants this year. It's just not captured there.
Okay. Great. So the last question, I see some position added then we under the proposal. Do we have any cut any other position around the district?
There's a small number of positions that are proposed to be reduced at the central office. There's a table that is right before the, I think it's right before the department section in the budget book that gives a detail of all of the changes in positions. And so that has those adjustments, both in terms of title, additions, and reductions. It's a very small number. At the school level, well, there is a proposal to add a music teacher at Portland High School. The budget does include a reduction of 2 staff, 2 core content teachers at Portland High School. That is in response to the fact that Portland High School's senior class this year is approximately 280 students, and next year it is estimated to be between 160 and 180 students. And so it just has to do with a bubble in that year, in that class, and more students choosing to go to Deering next year. And so there is a slight reduction in the number of core teachers. And then that change always happens every year at the elementary level, where one year Talbot may have 2 third grades and the next year 3, and Rowe may have 3 and 2. And so there's a little bit of shifting that happens there that you can see in the staffing pages for those schools.
Okay. So maybe that one can go back. I just want to go a little more further for the reduction for the core teacher you just mentioned in high school because of next year senior class. So the inflation, the imbalance sometimes goes year to year. So when we're making a reduction now, and then the following year we have a high number of seniors, so we have to hire back again. I just want to make sure then we go into that area, to that sense.
Yeah, I mean, This is an area where our overall pattern for enrollment in the district is not going down. We are working through a bubble that exists in our high school enrollment. And so if you look at our overall number, it may be that Portland goes up a little bit, but what we're seeing is that the average number of high school students that we will have in our system is lower over the next several years than it was last year, this year, as those big senior classes work out. And so this is not something where when we look at our 8th grade or our 7th grade this year, we anticipate that next year we'll have to turn around and hire unless there was a change, pretty significant change in enrollment patterns.
And so we have some more follow-up questions later on.
Yeah, we would welcome that. And just another note, so that bubble that superintendent is referring to is why then the board made the resolution about balancing the high school enrollment. So I think, I mean, the hope is that we will avoid that yo-yo effect that you're referring to.
Okay, perfect.
Vice Chair. Board Member Ali, and then we'll just work down the line there.
All right. Hey, everyone. Ali. First off, I thought I was in a meeting. I just want to thank everyone that was up here for the public comment, and we've heard all of your statements, and we're going to take serious consideration into it. Just wanted to make sure that that was said before while we're continuing to look at the budget.
Thank you, Board Member Ali. Board Member Upperman, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question about our strategic plan. Because of the CDS stuff, the Child Development Services, will we need to revisit that plan next year?
I don't think significantly. Our strategic plan has early childhood in it, and it's called out as an initiative. And so I think in this case, what we are simply considering is whether a longer runway would be helpful. And so if you think about our strategic plan, we talk about the idea of a design, implement, or a design, pilot, implement, and then monitor set of phases. I think what we're proposing here is a longer design phase, recognizing how new a space this is for us and the fact that we would benefit from a longer runway instead of a one-year runway.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Bryden.
Thank you, Chair. So I have hopefully a quick follow-up question about the fund balance topic. And so this is actually something I've asked in previous budget processes as well. And if a complete, full conversation and answer is more appropriate on Monday at the Finance Committee, that's totally fine. But I would like to better understand all this money that's sitting there in fund balance. How I'm hoping the money's not just sitting there. Hopefully it's at least earning some interest, maybe being invested somewhere and actually getting some return on millions of dollars. And I'm curious, I know in the past my high-level understanding is that there's some involvement with the city, but I would like to better understand how that works in terms of dollars and cents and whether we are getting the benefit of the time value of money. And if we're choosing not to spend it down really fast, then are we getting any sort of, benefit from that? And, because I would think that would be really important in terms of decision-making, how much of the fund balance that we do not have to spend down, should we continue to hold, because hopefully it's generating some revenue. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Bryden. I'll put that on the list for the Finance Committee.
I can give a quick answer.
Okay, well, yeah, go for it.
I mean, the quick answer on it is that it is not sitting and earning money, that this is not funds like you would think of where it sits in a money market account or your savings account. In some ways, it is more an accounting feature of the amount of money that we should have. It is the case that because our finances are intertwined with the city, there are times where we have not received revenue yet, but need to make payroll that the city, right, and their larger fund pays. And then there are times where we eventually catch up. And so it is not the case that we have a bank account sitting there with $11 million or $14 million right now, but instead it's a notation of how much money we have in reserve. But from a cash flow end, it does not mean that there's necessarily almost $15 million in cash sitting there.
Can I ask a follow-up question? I guess. So if there's $11 million somewhere, I get what I'm trying to better understand is who is getting the benefit of that money sitting there, whether it be interest, investment, income, that sort of revenue.
I would answer that in two ways. I would say there are days where the city is benefiting from it, from the fact that it sits in their account. There are days where we benefit because we don't need to take out a short-term loan to make payroll or to do that type of thing, because on the flip side, they have and so there's a cash flow piece that plays out in this that goes both ways. And so I think it's a little more complex than that, but the funds technically sit on the city side, and so there are times where they benefit from it. So,
thank you.
Any other? Yes, Student Representative Fitzgerald, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. So, please correct me if I'm misunderstanding anything, but I know that a lot of teachers have recently had to pull out of pocket for supplies, or at least that's what I've been told at Portland by teachers. And so I'm just looking through the pages of this, and I see that academic supplies are cut in almost every single school by varying numbers, but I'm just wondering where that will be made up or why it's being cut. Like academic supplies. Of course, if this is a conversation for a different place, I understand.
Oh, it's a great question.
No, it's a perfectly reasonable question. So when the budget took place for last year, and schools are given a pocket or a pool of money that Principal Jepson then decides how to allocate. When they were given it last year, they were given it all in one line that said academic supplies. And so you see one large lump sum that said academic supplies. And then that spring, throughout the budget process, but really almost over the summer, they then chose how to distribute it. And in some cases, they had to make hard trade-offs, right? In the same way that this board's going to make hard trade-offs about what to fund and not. But because it all sat in that academic supply side, you see a really large number there right now. This year, the principals have already done that process. And so that distribution has already happened. And so if you look at schools as an example, you'll actually see a large jump in contracted funds on the school piece. And that contracted piece is actually for athletics, and that's their athletic equipment piece. And so it's actually just that they've already done the distribution versus not having it until after the fact is what you really see there.
All right. So now I would like to move us into creating a short list of directives for the Finance Committee, and then we will vote to move the budget to the Finance Committee. So if there are any additions or subtractions that you would like to see in this budget, now is the first time that you can vocalize that. Again, this will not be the last time. So for new board members, this budget gets voted to the Finance Committee, and on Monday they will take that up. I highly encourage all board members and student representatives, if you want to come too, that would be awesome. There's opportunity for public comment there. And then the Finance Committee, when they're done, they will vote it back to the full board, where we will do the same process again, and we can make amendments at that point as well. So yeah, go ahead, Board Member Ali.
So we're allowed to, even if we're not on that committee, we're allowed to be there and speak on behalf.
Yeah,
of it,
you
right?
just don't get a vote, but you can 100% contribute.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to thank everyone at every level of the school system for working very hard and assessing what's needed for the students, the staff, the buildings, et cetera, for this budget. It's well presented, well thought out. And I'm sorry it's 5.3%. But I want to comment where I think that it's particularly strong, and from my perspective, is in the special ed needs. We'll hear tonight that is critical. I've heard it for years now. The other thing is, again, I always advocate for smaller class sizes in early elementary school. We obviously are in that position now, but I think the move for early elementary literacy, and whether it's with special, there are a couple of teachers in that line, I guess, as well as ed techs. I think that is wonderful. And of course, my children were very involved in the music. I believe Board Member Bryden was on a marching band, but a while back. So, but it was, it was an enriching thing that happened, and both of them as adults have benefited, and it has gone down over the years. And I'm very pleased that we've providing it opportunities for students that might not have the opportunity to be involved in music, as we've tried to do with art. I wonder about the fact that we don't have that pension money that we have to spend, that will be finished with this year, and that following year we will not have that large expense. And for that reason, I hope we can think about, well, maybe there's something in this budget that we could push off a bit, or to keep. I would like to see the tax rate come down half a percent. At least.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman. Other thoughts? I am fine with the 5.3%, but I am worried about benefits just from what I've been hearing within the community. I know we have some insulation because of our contracts with staff about a cap, but I would like to have already, like we've been talking about, have a little bit of work done in case we need to move money around. I definitely do not feel like going any higher makes sense right now. So I think it would make sense for the Finance Committee to have, like, what would a cut of $500,000 look like? Where could that come from? Not that I'm a proponent of that right now, but that we would have already done some thinking in case we need to move money around so that our tax rate does not go up from what is being proposed. And then Superintendent, I don't know if you have this handy, but just reminding us at Finance, like the impact of $1 million, what that does to the tax rate, and $500,000, like what the difference is on an individual in Portland would be helpful to have at the Finance meeting. Any other directives right now? Okay. I think that this is evidence of a very responsive budget that started a long time ago and has gotten a lot of input at every level and has been built upon this strategic plan. So I just want to thank our finance team. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to thank our superintendent and all the people that have been working around the clock to get this budget done and in front of the community on time. And with that, I'm going to be making a motion here for the consideration and action to refer the superintendent's fiscal year 26 budget to the Finance Committee. Would there be a second? Thank you, Board Member Ali. And let's go ahead and take a full roll call, Dr. Warren. Yes, please take a roll call. That's your part. You do that part. Okay. Thank you.
Member Ali.
Yes.
Member Yusra Ali.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Lena.
Yes.
Member Noor.
Yes.
Member Opperman.
Yes.
Student Representative Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Student Representative Kantiba.
Yes.
Student Representative Lee. Student Representative O'Brien,
Yes.
Student Representative Ziegler,
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes, so that is unanimous with the students voting in support with the majority. So the Finance Committee will now take up this budget. Again, that meeting is happening next Monday at 6 o'clock, and it'll be another round of great conversation.